is a powered Williams FP-45 pulling a dummy F-7B unit and a passenger car. I've had it for over 20 years. And then I found another one in the Phase 1 paint scheme for Amtrak, and for a while it was pretty easy to find cheap FP-45 shells on eBay. So I did a few customizations, and they took turns sharing the powered base. Last spring, I came across an eBay ad for 4 shells. 1 SD-45 and 3 FP-45s, all for $39 with shipping included. The SD and the FP fit on the same frame, but I sold the Southern Pacific SD, but the Pennsylvania shells will be repainted and receive new graphics. I would like to do large decals to cover most of the shell sides, in the same way that cars, trucks, and buses can now be covered in vinyl wraps. Before I do any painting, I'd like to see how well inkjet decals will conform to irregular or uneven surfaces. I've never had much luck using a setting solution with homemade decals, but since I've discovered a better way to apply them, I simply started following the directions. Well, I began to wonder if the decal setting solution would now work too. Since I can print as many decals as I want, these will be removed later on after the experiment. The side without a setting solution didn't do very well. There were simply too many spaces of trapped air, but this is looking more promising. The decals conform better, and the only downside seems to be around the edges, where some of the white decal paper has lost the ink. But I have an idea on how to remedy that issue. The practice decals are gone, and now I can get the shell ready for new paint. I decided to remove the rivets, hinges, and handles from the areas where the decals will be. I'll simply sand them away, but I'd like to keep the details in the other areas, so those were masked off. The wet sanding removed the graphics and most of the paint as well. It may have even softened the outline of those rectangular shapes, all of which will help the new decals conform to the remaining raised and recessed areas. None of these shells came with the front and rear grab rails. Those are nearly impossible parts to find anyway, so instead of trying to make new ones, I'll simply cap the areas with a small bit of sheet plastic. After the shell was washed and degreased with Dawn kitchen soap, it's time for masking and then new paint. A lot of the trains in Germany are red, so I chose this color from Rust-Oleum. It's a near-perfect match for the nose of a Santa Fe F3 from Lionel. I worked on a few of those, and I still have plenty left in the can. Decals also adhere better to a glossy finish. I made these AI-generated images at a website called Night Cafe Studio. I then brought them into Pages where I adjusted their sizes and added the DB logo. This is maybe the second or even third set of decals that I've printed. They've been sealed with a matte finish clear coat, and you may also notice that I've added a red border to these decals, which is part of my solution to the white edges showing up after installation. noticed the cab number for this train. I thought it was funny for about 20 minutes, but I eventually changed it. Most of the time, I do have an 8th grade boy's sense of humor, but eventually I will come to my senses, or my wife will smack me in the back of the head. And then there's the little white outline. As part of my earlier decal setting solution experiment, I realized how well the decals stay put. I actually had to wet sand the old ones to remove them. So I felt pretty confident that they could survive a small amount of Tamiya masking tape without being damaged. The exposed areas will be resprayed with the same red that I used to paint the shell. This should seal the edges of each decal and also hide that exposed white line. Two birds with one stone. The shell has so many straight lines, both vertical and horizontal, that hiding this new raised edge should be pretty easy. The blue painter's tape is really only making contact with the Tamiya modeler's tape. I trust the new decals and the setting solution to hold them in place, but I still want to be careful. Too much work has already gone into this for me to risk cutting corners or being impatient. And I'm really glad that I took my time. I'm so happy with the new edge between the red paint and the decals. Everything lined up really well, and the decals themselves fit very snugly over the raised details or outlines molded into the shell. It's time for this motorized base to get naked again. It's going to be wearing another new outfit. Not Amtrak, or Chicago's Metra, or even Amroad from my favorite movie, Silver Streak. This season, the fashions will come from Germany in the form of a red passenger locomotive for Deutsche Bahn. I'm calling this decal experiment a success. I don't know if maybe the decals shrink as they dry, but I have seen cracks develop when there's a trapped space of air around uneven surfaces, like when the decal hasn't conformed over the edges of any raised or lowered areas. The decal setting solution softened my inkjet decals just enough so that they almost look like they were painted onto the shell. And sealing the edges with the red paint worked out really well too. The FP-45 shell is pretty big, so it works well with customization, and I have two more. With the way this turned out, I feel pretty good about the next one I have planned. It will also be a German conversion with more of the photographics that, I think, look so good on decals. Thank you, Canon, for making a nice printer that works so well with Koala inkjet decal paper. So, until next time, this has been Bob's Workshop. Take care.